The first time I realized I might die because of someone else's secret, I was holding a broken glass of whiskey and bleeding all over a Persian rug worth more than my car. Funny thing? I wasn't even supposed to be there. The night had begun like any other cheap beer. The hum of city lights below my crumbling apartment in East LA, and me, typing away on my laptop for a freelance investigation column no one really read. I wrote stories about other people's lies, never realizing one of them would swallow me whole. Until he showed up. It was 2 in the morning when the knock came hard, steady, like someone who didn't care if he woke up the whole neighborhood. I opened the door to find a man standing there in a black leather jacket, rain dripping from his hair. He had that kind of face you didn't forget. Sharp jaw, cold blue eyes, and a scar cutting just beneath his left cheekbone. "Ethan Reed?" he asked. "Depends who's asking." He smirked. "Someone who's about to save your life." I should have slammed the door, but his voice low, controlled, with that gravelly tone that hinted at both danger and regret made me freeze. And then the gunfire started. The next few seconds blurred into chaos. Glass shattering, bullets slicing through the hallway, his hand gripping my wrist, dragging me down the stairs as I stumbled half awake, half terrified. When we finally dove behind his car, my heart was hammering so loud I thought it might drown out the sirens. "Who the hell are you?" I gasped. "Luca Moretti," he said, checking his gun like he'd done it 1,000 times. "Your guardian angel, apparently." That was the night everything changed, the night I learned the family I thought I'd escaped was the same one trying to kill me. By dawn, we were miles outside the city, driving through the desert. The sky was still bruised with the last of the night when Luca finally spoke again. "They found out about the documents," he said quietly. "What documents?" "The ones your father left behind." I stared at him. "My father died when I was 12. He was an accountant." Luca gave me a long look. "He wasn't. He was the financial brain of the Moretti crime family. And you, Ethan, you're the last person who can access what he hid." I laughed, the sound harsh and cracked. "You've got the wrong guy. I don't even balance my own taxes." Luca didn't smile. "They'll come for you anyway." We stopped at a rundown diner off Route 66. The air smelled like burnt coffee and regret. Luca sat across from me in the booth, his gun casually hidden under his jacket, eyes scanning the room with quiet paranoia. "You really expect me to believe my father worked for the Mafia?" I said, gripping the edge of the table. Luca's eyes softened just slightly. "I didn't expect you to believe me, but I need you to survive long enough to find out for yourself." Something about his voice, the steady calm beneath all that steel, made me trust him, against every instinct I had. Maybe it was the exhaustion, or the way his eyes flicked toward the window every time someone moved. Maybe it was because, for the first time in years, someone actually seemed to care whether I lived or died. Later that day, we reached the Moretti Estetia sprawling Italian-style mansion tucked into the hills above Malibu. The kind of place that whispered money and menace in equal parts. "Your father used to bring you here," Luca said quietly as we drove through the gates. "I don't remember. You were young. It's better that way." Inside, the marble floors gleamed under the afternoon sun. Oil paintings of men in suits lined the hallways, each face more ruthless than the last. And then, at the end of the corridor, a massive portrait caught my eye, a man with dark hair, eyes like mine, and a small smile that looked too soft for someone in this house. "My father," I whispered. Luca nodded. "Giovanni Reed. He built the Moretti Empire's accounts, hid their money, kept their secrets. But before he died, he encrypted a filia ledger that could destroy them all." "And you think I have it?" "I know you do," Luca said. "You just don't realize it yet." For the next few days, I was kept inside the mansion under Luca's watch. The security was tight, armed men at every corner, security cameras following every move, but Luca was different. He treated me like I wasn't just another liability. He taught me how to hold a gun, though I hated it. He cooked breakfast once, burning the eggs but pretending it was intentional. He even laughed at a sound so low and rough it felt like a secret. One evening, I found him standing by the balcony, shirt sleeves rolled up, sunset bleeding over his skin. You ever get tired of this? I asked quietly. He didn't look at me. Every damn day. Something unspoken lingered between us, heavy and electric. He finally turned, his gaze locking with mine. You shouldn't be here, Ethan. You deserve something better than all this. Then why are you protecting me? I asked. He hesitated. Because I promised your father I would. And because. He exhaled, the rest of his words lost in the crash of the ocean below. The nights grew longer. The danger crept closer. Someone inside the family had betrayed us, leaking our location. Luca grew quieter, more distant. But every time I caught his eyes on me, I saw something breaking through the arm or a flicker of tenderness he didn't know how to hide. Then came the night everything fell apart. It started with the sound of glass shattering downstairs. Men shouting in Italian. Luca was on his feet in an instant, pulling me behind him as bullets ripped through the hallways. We ran. Again. Only this time there was nowhere to go. Luca fired back, his movements sharp and deadly. Stay behind me, he barked. Who are they? People who think you're worth killing for. A bullet grazed his arm. He didn't even flinch. I grabbed his wrist, pulled him toward a side door leading to the garage. But before we could reach it, a familiar voice echoed from the staircase. Luca, the man said, smiling coldly. You always did pick the wrong side. It was Marco Moretti, Luca's older brother, the real heir. And just like that, everything made sense. Luca wasn't just protecting me from the Mafia. He was protecting me from his own family. Marco stepped forward, gun in hand. Give him to me, brother, he said softly. You know how this ends. Luca stood between us, his body tense, his eyes never leaving Marco's. Not like this, Luca said. He's innocent. Innocent. Marco laughed. His father stole from us. The blood debt passes on. I wanted to speak, to say something, anything, but Luca's hand shot out, pushing me behind him. Run, he whispered. I shook my head. I'm not leaving you. His eyes softened, even as his jaw clenched. Please, Ethan, don't make me choose between you and the family. For a moment, everything froze, the gun between brothers, the silence before the storm. And then the first shot rang out. The first bullet missed Luca by inches. The second didn't. It hit his shoulder, spinning him halfway before he slammed into the marble pillar. His gun clattered to the floor, sliding across the blood-slick tiles toward me. My ears rang from the blast, the air thick with gunpowder and betrayal. Luca, I shouted, diving toward him. Marco's men fanned out behind him, black suits, black eyes, all business. Luca pressed his hand against the wound, breath hitching. His other arm reached for the gun, but Marco stepped on it, smirking down at his brother. I told you this would happen, Marco said softly. You were never meant for this family, Luca. You never had the stomach for power. Luca coughed blood, laughing through the pain. No, he rasped. Just enough to stand against it. Marco aimed the gun at me. And you, the journalist who stumbled into hell. You could have walked away. You should have. My mind raced. The gun was too far. Luca was bleeding out. And there were at least 6 of them. But then I saw it, the small detonator on the table near the door, the one Luca had wired earlier when he thought no one was watching. A backup plan. He met my eyes just once. Now that look said. I lunged. The explosion tore through the east wing, shaking the ground, turning glass and fire into rain. I barely felt Luca's arm around me as he dragged us both out a side door and into the night. The roar followed us, the sky behind us a blooming inferno. We stumbled down the cliffside path, coughing smoke. He was bleeding badly now, each step leaving a trail in the dirt. Don't talk, I said, trying to support him. He gave a half smile. You'd make a terrible nurse. Shut up, Luca. See? Terrible. By the time we reached the car hidden under the trees, the mansion was a glowing skeleton against the horizon. Luca slumped in the passenger seat, his hand shaking as he reloaded his gun. You just blew up your family's house, I said, voice trembling. He turned to me, eyes fierce despite the pain. I blew up everything that kept you from living. I didn't answer. I just drove. We made it to a safe house outside Palm Springs, an old ranch Luca claimed belonged to a friend who owed him a favor. The place smelled of dust and desert wind, the kind of quiet that felt almost holy after the chaos. He collapsed onto the couch, breathing hard. I cleaned the wound as best I could, using shaking hands and vodka from a half-empty bottle on the counter. "You're supposed to pour it on the wound, not drink it," he muttered. "I'm multitasking." He smiled faintly, then grimaced as the alcohol burned. I wrapped the bandage tight and sat back, staring at him. His skin was pale, sweat running down his neck. But his eyes, those damned blue eyes, still burned like a storm. "Why did you come back for me?" I asked. He looked at me for a long time as if weighing something. "Because I don't run from the things I care about." The words hung there, sharp as glass. I wanted to look away, but couldn't. The air between us felt electric, too heavy for the small room. Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He checked it, his jaw tightening. "They're regrouping. Marco's alive." My stomach dropped. "After that explosion?" "He always survives," Luca said bitterly. "But he lost his leverage. Now he'll go after the ledger." I frowned. "The one my father encrypted?" He nodded. "It's the only thing left that can burn the Moretti family to the ground. And you're the key." That night I couldn't sleep. The desert was quiet outside, stars spilling across the sky like scattered diamonds. I sat by the window, laptop open, staring at the encrypted files Luca had copied from a hidden drive inside the mansion before it blew. Numbers, codes, offshore accounts. It looked meaningless until I noticed the pattern. A series of coordinates hidden in the margins. I woke Luca. "These aren't financial codes. They're locations." He rubbed his eyes. "Where?" "New York, Chicago, Miami. Every city where the Moretti family has influence." He leaned closer, reading over my shoulder. "It's a map." He hid the money in pieces. "Jesus, your father really was a genius." I didn't feel proud. I felt sick. "He was also a criminal." Luca looked at me then, softly. "No, Ethan. He was a father who tried to fix the mess he helped build. That's why he encrypted it. He wanted you to finish it." Before I could reply, headlights flashed across the window. My heart stopped. "Company?" Luca whispered, reaching for his gun. They came fast, 2 SUVs, lights off, rolling silent over the dirt road. Luca killed the lamp and motioned for me to move. "Back door. Go. I'm not leaving you." His voice was low, calm, terrifyingly controlled. "It's not a debate." We slipped out into the desert night. The air was cold, the sand soft under our boots. Luca moved like a shadow, silent, lethal. He signaled me toward an old water tower. We ducked behind it just as the first SUV stopped outside the ranch. Men got out, all armed, all looking for us. "Marco's men," Luca murmured. "He's not wasting time." He aimed, fired once, clean shot, a man down. Then chaos erupted. Bullets tore through the dark, sparks lighting the sand. I could barely breathe, adrenaline burning through me. "Ethan," Luca barked. "Run east. I'll cover you." "Not without you." "Go." Another shot cracked past my ear. I stumbled, hitting the ground, sand biting my face. When I looked up, Luca was fighting 2 men at once, brutal and precise. But there were too many. I crawled toward him, grabbed a fallen rifle, and aimed like he'd taught me. My hands shook, but I pulled the trigger anyway. The man about to stab Luca dropped. He turned to me, eyes wide. "Nice shot. I'm learning." We moved together after that, 2 hearts beating against the chaos, bullets singing through the air. Finally, the last SUV went up in flames, and the desert fell silent again. When it was over, Luca was bleeding from a cut across his jaw, his breath ragged. I reached out, brushing away the blood with trembling fingers. He didn't flinch. "You okay?" I asked. He stared at me for a long moment. "Ask me when this is over." We drove north for hours, toward Nevada. The desert stretched endless ahead, the sky turning pale with dawn. Luca finally broke the silence. There's a man in Vegas. Used to work for my father before he switched sides. He might know where the rest of the ledger pieces are. And if he doesn't, then we find someone who does. He glanced at me. You still can back out, Ethan. You don't owe me this. I shook my head. You saved my life. Twice. That makes us even. Even. He smiled faintly. You really don't get how this works. Vegas was loud, blinding, alive. We checked into a cheap motel off the strip, blending in with the drunk tourists and gamblers. Luca wore a gray hoodie, blending better than I expected for someone who looked like he could kill a man with a look. We met the contact, a nervous man named Rocco, in a bar that smelled like smoke and broken promises. He handed over a flash drive with trembling fingers. I don't want any trouble, Rocco said. You already have it, Luca replied. The drive contained surveillance footage, men moving crates at the docks, ledgers being transferred, names. One name stood out, Marco Moretti. But beneath it, another file caught my attention. I opened it. The video was grainy, time-stamped years ago. My father's face appeared on the screen. He was older, thinner, looking into the camera with haunted eyes. If you're seeing this, Ethan, he said, then the family found me. I couldn't destroy the Morettis, but you can. Luca will help you. Trust him. He's not like the rest. I looked up, stunned. Luca's expression was unreadable. You knew him, I whispered. Luca nodded. He saved my life once. Said I'd repay the debt by protecting you. So that's all this was? A favor. He met my gaze. It was, at first. The silence between us felt like a heartbeat too loud. Then the door burst open. Gunfire ripped through the bar. Glass exploded, people screamed. Luca tackled me to the floor, returning fire instantly. Rocco was gone, smart man, and I realized we'd been followed since Vegas. Luca took one down, then another, moving like a ghost. I crawled behind the counter, grabbing bottles for cover. A bullet grazed my arm. The sting felt distant. Ethan, he shouted, diving beside me. I'm fine. You're bleeding. So are you. He gave a short, humorless laugh. Guess we're matching now. We fought our way out through the kitchen, kicking open the back door into the alley. Sirens wailed in the distance. Luca pulled me behind a dumpster just as another car screeched around the corner. Marco stepped out, calm, smiling. You run well, brother, he said, raising his gun. But you can't outrun blood. Luca stepped forward, weapon drawn. This ends tonight. Marco tilted his head. It ends when he's dead. The brothers circled each other, tension sharp as a knife. I could see it, years of loyalty, betrayal, love twisted into something poisonous. Father would be proud, Marco sneered. Luca's voice was quiet. Father's dead because of you. And then they moved. 2 shots. 1 scream. The world tilted. When the smoke cleared, Marco lay on the ground, blood blooming beneath him. Luca stood over him, chest heaving, gun trembling in his hand. I stepped closer, heart pounding. Luca. He didn't move, didn't look away from his brother's body. I told him I'd never be like him, he said quietly. But I was wrong. I reached for his arm. You did what you had to do. He finally turned, eyes breaking blue fire melting into something fragile, human. No, he whispered. I did what I swore I wouldn't. I became him. We left Vegas before dawn, the city lights fading in the rearview mirror. Neither of us spoke for a long time. The air was heavy with the smell of gunpowder and guilt. Finally, I said, your brother made his choice. You made yours. Luca stared out the window. Choices don't wash off that easily. I looked at him, the man who'd saved me, lied to me, bled for me. The man who'd just killed his own blood to protect mine. And for the first time, I realized something terrifying. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. I was afraid of losing him. The sun was just beginning to rise over the Nevada desert, painting the sky in streaks of gold and red, the same colors that had once meant danger, but now felt like the promise of something else. Luca sat beside me in the passenger seat, silent, the morning light glinting off the faint bloodstain still marking his sleeve. We hadn't spoken since leaving Vegas. The hum of the road filled the space between us, heavy and unspoken. Finally, I broke the silence. Where are we going? He didn't look at me. North. Somewhere they can't find us. You think that's possible? He finally turned, a small, tired smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. It has to be. The highway stretched endlessly ahead. For the first time in weeks, no one was chasing us. No bullets, no betrayal. Just the quiet, the wind, and the sound of his breathing beside me. But peace has a way of feeling temporary when you've lived too long in chaos. We found a cabin near Lake Tahoe, old, creaky, the kind of place where dust and silence had become roommates. It wasn't much, but to me it felt like freedom. Luca checked every window, every lock, the instinct of a man who never stopped surviving. I stood by the door, watching him move slower now, the exhaustion finally showing. You don't have to keep doing that, I said softly. Old habits, he muttered. Then, glancing at me, you sure you're okay with this? Hiding out here with a wanted man. I shrugged. You're not the first dangerous choice I've made. He raised a brow. No, but you're the only one that felt worth it. That stopped him. For the first time in days, his shoulders relaxed. He turned away, but I could see the corner of his mouth lift slightly. Over the next week, we built something almost normal. We fixed the leaking roof together, or rather, I handed him tools while he swore creatively in Italian from the ladder. We cooked whatever we could find. Canned soup, instant noodles, sometimes a miracle of burnt pancakes. At night, we sat by the fire, the silence between us no longer heavy, but comfortable. Luca never talked about the people he'd lost or the life he'd left behind, but sometimes when the flames flickered just right, I saw the boy he must have been before the guns, before the blood, before the guilt. And sometimes, I caught him watching me, eyes softer than I thought possible. One evening, I found him outside, staring out across the lake. The reflection of the stars shimmered on the water like fragments of another world. He looked calm, almost peaceful. Can't sleep? I asked, stepping beside him. He shook his head. When you spend your whole life expecting an attack, it's hard to believe it's really over. It's not, I said honestly. But it's changing. He looked at me, then really looked. You still have that file, don't you? I nodded. The ledger. Your family's empire in numbers and names. Everything your father, Marco, and mine built. You could destroy it all, he said quietly. Finish what your father started. I will, I said. But not to punish anyone. To end it. Luca nodded, eyes on the water again. You'll need proof. The authorities won't touch the Moretti name without it. I smiled faintly. Then I guess we give them proof. He turned toward me, the faintest glint of surprise and pride in his eyes. You've changed, Ethan. So have you. He hesitated, then reached for my hand. Not enough. But his hand didn't let go. Over the next days, we planned. The ledger was a web offshore accounts, coded files, and one final piece missing. A server hidden in San Francisco under a fake business name. My father had left the coordinates. Luca knew the route. When we finally hit the road again, it felt different. Not like running, like moving toward something that could finally end the story. Once this is done, I said, we'll both be free. He didn't answer. Luca. He glanced at me. Freedom's a strange thing. Some of us don't know what to do with it once we get it. I smiled. Then I'll teach you. San Francisco greeted us with fog and noise, the kind of chaos that could hide anything, even two men on the run. We found the building, an old tech warehouse near the docks. Luca scouted the perimeter while I hacked into the system. My fingers shook on the keyboard, but the codes matched perfectly. My father's last encryption opened like a door long sealed. Inside the files was everything. Names, transactions, bank trails, politicians on payrolls, murders buried under legal smoke. It wasn't just a ledger, it was truth. Jesus, I whispered. This could tear down half the city. Luca leaned over my shoulder, his voice low, then hit send. I looked up at him. You sure? He nodded once. It's the only way to end this. So I did. One click. The data uploaded to every major news outlet and federal agency across the country. We watched in silence as the progress bar reached 100%. Then, for the first time, the weight lifted. It's done, I said. Luca exhaled. Then it's over. But we both knew it never really would be. The next morning, the news broke. Mafia empire exposed. Internal files leaked. The Moretti name was everywhere. Indictments, arrests, headlines. Chaos. Luca watched it all from the motel TV, silent. His expression unreadable. You did it, I said quietly. He looked at me. No, we did. Then he switched the TV off, stood, and said the one thing I'd been dreading. You need to go. I froze. What? They'll come for me next. I'm the last Moretti standing. You stay, you'll get dragged down with me. I'm not leaving you, Luca. Yes, you are. His tone softened. You're the part of this story that deserves to keep living. Anger burned in my chest. Don't you dare pull that noble martyr crap on me. We've come this far. He stepped closer, cupping my face gently, his thumb brushing the cut on my cheek. Ethan, he whispered, if I stay, I'll ruin the one good thing I've ever had. I grabbed his wrist. Then ruin it together. For a long moment, neither of us moved. The world could have ended right there, and I wouldn't have cared. His forehead leaned against mine, our breaths mingling, his voice trembling when he finally spoke. I don't know how to stop fighting, he said. Then don't, I whispered. Fight for me instead. The next week blurred into motion. FBI raids, news coverage, chaos across every city the Morettis had touched. Luca disappeared from the headlines entirely, which was either luck or his skill at staying invisible. We drove east, past the Rockies, through endless miles of open sky. No plan, no destination. Just movement. Just life. At some nameless diner in Colorado, I found him staring out the window at the sunrise. The light caught in his eyes, softer now, unguarded. You ever think about what comes next? I asked. He smiled faintly. Breakfast. I laughed. I mean, after all this. He shrugged. Maybe buy a boat. Live somewhere warm. Change my name. Grow old without getting shot at. Sounds like a dream. He looked at me then, and I realized he was serious. You'd come with me? I smiled. Try and stop me. Months passed. The world moved on. The Moretti empire crumbled quietly under federal hands. Politicians denied everything. My story, our story, ran under an alias in the Atlantic. No names, just shadows and truths. And Luca and I, we built a new life. A small coastal town in Oregon. A cottage near the cliffs, where the ocean crashed below and seagulls screamed like laughter. He worked fixing boats. I wrote again, not about crime or death, but about life, healing, and the strange ways people survive. Sometimes, I still woke up to nightmares, gunfire, flames, his voice shouting my name. But then I'd feel his hand reach across the bed, steady and real. You're safe, he'd whisper. I've got you. And for once, I believed him. One evening, months later, we sat on the porch watching the sun melt into the Pacific. Luca handed me a beer, still cold from the cooler. You ever miss it? I asked. The adrenaline? He shook his head. Not once. What about the family? He was quiet for a while. Then softly, you're my family now. The waves crashed against the rocks below. I reached for his hand, lacing my fingers with his. For a man who had lived his whole life surrounded by blood and secrets, his touch was impossibly gentle. I never thought I'd get here, I said. Where's that? Here. Alive. With you. He smiled, a real one this time. Neither did I. The wind carried the sound of the ocean, the last light painting his face gold. He looked at me like I was something he hadn't dared to hope for, something fragile but real. Ethan, he said softly. Yeah. He leaned closer, his lips ghosting mine. You saved me. I smiled against him. We saved each other. And when he kissed me slow, unhurried, The kind of kiss that didn't demand anything except truth. It felt like the world finally stopped running. Later that night, as the stars climbed above the horizon and the fire crackled low, I opened my laptop and wrote the final words of my article. Sometimes, the most dangerous secret isn't hidden in files or money. It's hidden in the heart, the part that still believes love can survive even the worst of us. And maybe that's the only legacy worth keeping. I closed the laptop. The sound of the waves filled the silence. Luca came up behind me, wrapping his arms around my shoulders, chin resting on my head. "Writing again?" he murmured. "Yeah. About us. About redemption." He chuckled low and warm. "You make it sound like a happy ending." I turned in his arms, looking up at him. "That's because it is." Outside, the ocean kept moving endless, unstoppable, but for the first time, neither of us were running from it. We had survived the fire. We had found peace in the ashes. And together, we finally learned what freedom felt like. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.